I know what trending is better than anybody in the world. I've been trending my whole life. From the day I was born, I've been trending.
I like the good publicity and I like the bad publicity. It all plays.
Who is Donald Trump? A while back I realized that for all the attention Trump gets, I actually didn't know much about his life, how he rose to become one of the most powerful people on the planet, and what his life and career can teach us about what he really wants. I didn't know any of that. So I delved in to try to better understand how he rose to power, and most importantly, why there are so many products with his name and face on them.
It is not a toupee, okay?
Okay?
All right.
Will you please inform the public?
So join me as we explore the rise of Donald Trump.
Rich, ruthless, and famous, known for the buildings he's built and the wives he's divorced.
He played Monopoly, but more than Monopoly, he played with building blocks. Always with building blocks.
Donald Trump was born in Queens, New York, a river away from the gleaming skyline of Manhattan. He was a middle child of 5 kids, the son of an immigrant mother from Scotland who ran the Trump home and who was known for her charitable work in the community. But in Trump's telling, his father was his greatest influence.
My father built low and moderate income housing in Brooklyn and Queens.
His dad made a big fortune taking advantage of post-World War II government programs that funded affordable housing complexes during New York's rapid growth. By all accounts, Fred Trump was an obsessively hard worker, saying that he was successful because he could, quote, squeeze 9 days of work into a 7-day work week. Growing up, young Donald was the rich kid on the block. But even still, his hardworking father forced him to have a newspaper delivery route to teach him hard work. Though apparently when it rained, his dad would drive him around on his newspaper route in his Cadillac. Okay. Fred Trump focused on teaching his son the ways of the real estate business, taking young Donald to construction sites from a very young age. He instilled in his son a deep drive to win at anything you do, to be the winner. He would tell Donald that he was raising him to be a king, and that he must become a killer at anything he did. He was tough on Donald because he wanted him to be a winner. At school, Donald Trump was, in his own words, aggressive. His music teacher, who died in 2015, once said that, quote, there are certain children who need attention all of the time. He was one of those. And even punching that music teacher in the face, apparently giving him a black eye, because, quote, I didn't think he knew anything about music. I mean, he was like in elementary school. But it does show you some of this personality that starts to shape up from a young age. Trump says in his book that he focused on creating mischief because for some reason, quote, I liked to stir things up. I liked to test people. It wasn't malicious. It was just aggressive. You can read a lot more about this in his book, The Art of the Deal, where he talks a little bit about his childhood, as well as this really well-reported biography, Trump Revealed. I pulled a lot from these sources in my reporting here. Anyway.
One of the great choices I ever made in terms of success was the choice of going to NYMA, New York Military Academy.
Trump's father, Fred, obsessed with hard work and discipline, sent Donald to military boarding school to live full-time when he was just 13 years old. And this is where Donald Trump really starts to thrive.
It was a good education. It was a good training. It was a good training. I enjoyed it.
From my reading, this military academy was pretty intense. It was a place where, quote, physical brutality and verbal abuse were tolerated and encouraged, both in hazing new students and physical disciplining from teachers. Trump actually thrived on this kind of intense structure. It helped fire up his competitive nature, and soon he would be getting good grades and winning medals for things like having the cleanest room, or the shiniest shoes, or the best made bed, all while going around telling fellow students that, quote, I'm going to be famous someday. And this is where I want to start to make a list of some of Donald Trump's core beliefs that start to become clear from a young age. This is stuff we'll see over and over again, and I want to make a list. First and foremost, the guy is obsessed with winning. You see this all over his childhood and the rest of his life.
I was a great baseball player.
What position?
First base, catcher, first base.
Trump was super into baseball. His baseball coach recounts that, quote, Donald always had to be number one in everything. He would do anything to win, and he wanted people to know that he was first. So teenage Donald Trump spends the school year thriving at military academy, eventually rising to the rank of captain over the rest of the cadets, and then spending summers back in Queens working with his dad, learning the ways of the real estate business. Both of these experiences are very formative and lay the foundation of who he will become and what he will do in his future. That future continues when he goes off to college.
I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words.
Trump gets into college, and he still doesn't know exactly what direction he's going to take. He considers going to film school in LA to become a filmmaker.
My other fantasy as I got older was to do movies. I wanted to be a movie maker.
Man, what an alternative world that would be. Donald Trump, the movie director.
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
I like keeping a low profile.
If only. But ultimately, he decided to follow his father's path. He studies economics and business, and this is like during the 70s. There's a war going on in Vietnam. Young men are being recruited, but Trump qualifies for an educational deferment, meaning he gets out of the draft 4 times because he's going to college. Once he got out of school, he would have been eligible for the draft, but he qualified once again for a deferral because of a problem with his heel bone. Though there is some controversy around this, because the doctors who wrote Trump's deferral recommendation both lived and or worked in buildings owned by Fred Trump, Donald Trump's dad. And there's some speculation as to whether or not he actually did have a heel spur, or whether or not these doctors were doing Donald Trump's dad a favor by making it so his son wouldn't be sent off to war. Either way, he didn't go to war, and instead starts working for his dad's thriving real estate business, building lower and middle income apartment buildings in Brooklyn